Hi there. Now I've got a funny thing going on with this camera now, and that is it doesn't want to switch on unless, or it doesn't want to switch on while in connected mode unless I switch it on first and then connect it. Don't ask me why, I don't know. Anyway, look, welcome back to Real Love Guitars. Got an interesting thing here, and it's one that's already generating some controversy. This is a Rally sort of super stratty, let's put strat thing, Chinese made from the Rally factory, and it's just a Rally. Now my interest in this comes from the fact that I've had bought and sold and set up and enjoyed a number of Rally guitars in the last few years, and they've all the Les Paul copies have been surprisingly good quality instruments, or actually punching well above their Chinese made weight. However, this one is one I've not seen before in the UK, and it's in pretty rough condition, but it was, the customer, the person who's bought this, didn't pay an awful lot for it, so they're hoping that it's going to play surprisingly well for the money. And let's just look, before we get into the controversy, let's look at what we've got. We've got what feels like probably a basswood, fairly thick body. If that was a hard wood, that would weigh an absolute ton, but it doesn't, because it's not, and it's not one of those big, dense, heavy woods. But still, it's got, fairly nice weight to it. It's well balanced. It doesn't feel too heavy to stand around playing for hours. It's got HSH configuration. This pickup is dialed all the way up to the top, and as a result it's kind of pressing the strings miles higher. A couple of them are broken. We've got a low grade, shall we say, form of a Chinese made tremolo system here, which has all the necessary parts in place. Now the question that some people, aspersions that some of you have already cast on this, that made, with a tremolo made of this stuff, it'll be absolute rubbish. Now, that's not been my experience. However, I won't claim victory on it until we've tried it out. It's missing a tuner, so it will need a replacement of some sort. I'm not sure if I've got one in that style of gold, but I'll find something that works, and Simon's not too concerned about it. But it's in rough shape. Obviously the action is about 100 feet tall at the top here, but not helped, as you can see, by the fact that the strings have been pushed up by this bizarre humbucker. But apart from that, and a little bit loose on the straps and everything's in place. So I think, my feeling is this will be a surprisingly good guitar to play. There are a couple of tiny little nicks on the fingerboard, but as far as I've seen, there are no major problems with the frets. The wear on the frets is kind of relatively minimal. The locking nuts aren't locked down, so they're not doing anything at that point. So aspirations for this, bear in mind, I think this cost about 85 quid including postage, so it's not a lot of money. And they're not expensive guitars anyway. Rally is an interesting Korean owned Chinese production facility, and as I say, they've made the guitars I've had, and a couple of other people will agree, the Les Paul copies they make under this brand have been really superb. I mean, just beautiful playing Les Paul copies, as good as any that I've seen personally, with great onboard pickups. So, and I've seen a couple of other shapes of this guitar, namely an Explorer and something else, a couple of V's I've seen along the way. And they, I have to say, in terms of setup, they weren't as phenomenal as the Les Paul models, which are the GL300s and the GL300, 400s and 450s, all seem to be really chunky, nice Les Paul copies. As I say, the other Rally models, the few that I've seen, were entirely capable. They were good guitars, but they were overshadowed a little bit actually by the quality of the Les Paul copies, in my personal view. So I'm a fan of those. This, it's a budget guitar, and I'm quietly confident that as long as nothing's missing or stripped out here, I'm confident that this will be an enjoyable thing, and I'm going to take it apart completely, probably, well, more so than I would do most things, because there's stuff that needs taken care of in advance, and I think I want to do that before I attempt any kind of setup on it. So I think I'll take it apart, check out the whole of its workings first, and sort of take you under the cover of all the components. It came without a an arm, but I happen to have some really cheap, one of these really cheap. So I'm getting into I'm falling victim to, or falling foul of the same thing as other people. I'm labelling it as really cheap. I've got an arm that works. It's not perfect, but it sits on top of the thread, and you could pretty safely use that as an arm to work it, right? It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's a replacement, and it will do. But anyway, so the point is, I'm not going to take this apart. I'm not going to separate this from the unit I've got. But the point is, I know pretty confident I can get a £3 or £4 replacement gold one to suit this guitar that will, providing, I mean, given that this pretty much fits, in fact with a bit of work it fits all the way on, so I'm pretty confident that a straight Chinese, relatively inexpensive arm will do the job on this. Anyway, so like I said, the controversial part is some folks are already telling me what a piece of junk this is, and horrible Chinese crap and all the rest of it, and I get it. I understand what people mean when they say Chinese junk and whatever. You know, there's a view that it looks horrible, or they think it's cheap. It's tired and not well looked after. However, like I say, we're looking at the question of how well can a basic Chinese-made budget guitar play. Okay, and I think this will be a surprise thing. It's got a very flat radius, so it's an easy guitar to play in terms of the neck. Let's see if all these things work. I don't know if they do, by the way. That's a kind of a first stage. Let's rotate you down. Bring up probably the batteries may be failing on this old thing at the moment because I left it on the other day. Don't expect pickups to work even at this point. Maybe. Okay, they do. I was going to say they may be disconnected for some reason. Okay, pot's spinning a bit, but it's working. Tone works. Okay, that's got strings in the way. Don't worry about that. That's just the strings hitting off the top of this pickup. So obviously that doesn't help, but I'm not going to do anything else with it at this point. All I know is that, okay, the pickup's working at this point. That's fine. So we'll just we'll get into taking everything apart and seeing how things look. It's pretty cold today, so I've got my heater on. We've got for some reason there's what do you call it? It's just sleet coming in. It's not actually that cold out until the sleet and hail comes in. Okay, so I'm going to take off these little locking nuts, and as I do it, really, I'll put some more light on. I'm also just interested in checking out how things look as I go through. Where's the big light switch? There we are. Yeah, just checking out how things look as I go through, making sure everything works, which is kind of handy for later on. Now I'm going to get my little wedge out. Let's see where this is going to sit. Yeah, everything's clear, so it's not going to do any damage if it rolls backwards at this point in time. But let's go into the back and just check out the back part of things. We'll use the speedy method here. I think, it's easy to judge basic budget guitars quite harshly, I think. And the essence is, how does it sound, how does it play, how does it feel, and how does it sound? And of course, before that is obviously a vital question: is does the thing stay in tune when you play it? So we've got a fairly insubstantial tremolo block in the back here, which I'm going to undo at this point, unhook. So take off the springs. Not a lot of pressure on those at the moment, so obviously it's not under full string load, but there we go. It's sort of basic budget stuff. I'm not going to say that with this whatever it is. I'm going to cut these strings because they're old and dead. Yeah, I'm not saying budget with any bias actually. Budget as in good budget. Hey, while I'm at it, let's just take a gentle roll on this and just see why this thing is cranked right up to the top, or is there any movement down at all, or is this thing being jammed in place for some reason? Well, it's evidently, no, it's going down. Somebody's just dialed it up for the hell of it. So again, that's fine. You know, you may find something broken under there that doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do, but that looks okay. Everything's the strings are filthy and ancient, and then I'll get them off here. So the first part of the thing will be, let's find another tuner, see what the options are. We've got some string trees here that I don't recommend anyway on any guitar. They're the little old style slotted metal ones, and they're kind of problematic in that they can catch the strings. Now what we've got here is we've got a little locking unit. Oh, I'll take the whole thing out, that's probably easier. Take the posts out as well, just have a quick look. I mean, partly what I'm interested in is to see whether or not make sure that the wood here is intact more than anything else. That's a kind of critical thing for the tremolo to work. It's the thing you can never see from buying at distance. So we have the cinched posts, if you like, where the tremolo sits, or the blade of the tremolo sits, and you know, just feeling how it moves. It doesn't feel to be any chips or huge chunks taken out of this thing, so there's nothing to kind of raise the alarms straight away. What we've got under here, we've got some foam, which is there to protect the metal parts of the tremolo when they sit right flat, and I think a little bit of it's broken off, but again, it's not a major problem. We could always replace it if we wanted to, if it was a problem, but I don't see that it is. Now under here, we would, I don't know how well you can see this, under the foam we get a better look at the wood. Again, it is very light basswood, I'd say, but it's not broken off, so that the tremolo loading over the time that the guitar's been together hasn't damaged the wood under there. But we'll get a closer look in a minute when we take everything off. So this is a complete strip down, because I'm going to want to replace, or not replace necessarily, but get under there and tighten up the pots. And the easiest way to do it and to get a good look around everything is to take everything off in one go before putting it all back together again. And to me, it may be a little bit time consuming, but I kind of like to do it because I'm just going to cut these for a minute, just for the sake of brevity. And there's plenty enough spare wire for us to redo it later on. Yeah, it takes a little bit extra time, but it gives me a chance to make sure everything's working. Now before I do, I want to ease off these pots, and I'll probably need a bit of cloth to do it. It's got layers of oil on it, so I won't want to use that one. Try and just hook a bit of cloth. I don't know how well you can see this. Get a bit of cloth underneath here and use that as a sort of upper puller thing, or under that side if it'll do it better. Quite stiff this, so I don't know if that's been kind of locked in place. So I'll try a bit of extra force with this little thing here if I can get it off. Hellfire. Can I get it off? Can I? Heck. I managed to tie that on beautifully. Thank you. I feel this may have been stuck on in some previous life in a way that we we might never get it off, but on the other hand, that's okay. I'll do a similar one with that. Now it's already loose, but let's just lever it off. That's got a bit of, alright, that's in the wrong place, but who cares. Okay, so let's try and gently pull off the knob off the thing, which makes the whole thing easier to get out if you want to. You don't have to, but so these are slightly smaller screws. They're sort of non-standard in the, they're not the regular size replacement pickguard screws. Now, some of you probably know that I like underdogs, but it's also partly not just for the sake of it, but it's also partly because I've got a lot of faith in a basic thing, you know, basic product that comes out of those Chinese factories like the Rally factory. I can't remember the name exactly of it. It has a distribution, a Singapore-based distribution unit, which is which you can find if you do a long hunt online. You'll eventually find it. Again, I'm going to just snip this off here because there's plenty of spare. It saves me heating up the soldering iron just yet, and I can pull that out. So straight away, just have a look at what we've got. We've got an already shielded body. Okay, so you know, for a cheap guitar, it's shielded. That's not a bad sign. We've got it obviously routed for HSH. Not a lot of material between there and there, but at least it doesn't go right the way through in some sort of shagged split thing like you do find on some guitars. As I say, the interesting bit for me is the looking right down along here as clearly as I can. There's absolutely no splits here, and it's not a huge piece of timber or wood. This is often, this little bridge here between the bridge pickup and the tremolo unit is very often the bit that shears. Quite a lot on Squier standard strats, as I've found in the past. But yeah, so we've got, you can see the original colour. It's not hugely discoloured. It'll clean up quite nicely. You know, not expensive hardware at all. We don't expect it to be. But again, so far, nothing here that suggests that it won't play well. And then behind here we've got a tortoiseshell thing with wobbly pots, which is a standard thing that happens to all guitars. We've got our HSH single coils. It's a ceramic magnet on that. I don't know who makes these, but the proof will be in the listening. They've been potted, because I can see there's wax. Well, I think they've been potted. There's wax kicking around there, surplus wax. So again, better than you'll get on most Chibsons, for example, which people pay considerably more for. Now the question is, they are full-size pots, but they're just slightly smaller than full-size. But you know, again, better than you'll get in your straight, you know, your vintage V100 or something, which is usually mini pots. I don't think they've ever been off. There's a very snug fit. We've got a very small crack in one side of the neck pocket, but that's about it. Apart from that, it's in good shape. But as lots of people know, those neck pocket cracks are hugely common on a lot of bolt-on necks. I've got a rubber plate or a plastic plate under there, which is fine. Just kind of keeping an eye open for any shims at this point. And there is one already in there, but it's kind of in place, so we won't disturb it unless we have to. Okay, so there's the neck pocket, cleanly cut, nicely done. There's the heel. It looks like it's only ever been off this once. In my experience, it looks like the holes aren't ragged at all. They're very clean, in good shape, nice and flat. Nothing at all to worry about on there. I'm just going to put this down here for a minute. So what I'll do is also take off these little Where did I put it? Put it back there. I'll take off these little string retainers. I'm not going to do anything with this locking nut because it's in as good as shape as it's going to be. These aren't very worn, these frets, which is good news because they're not hugely tall to begin with, but we should have little problem. We don't have any twisting or anything, so that's encouraging. I don't see any reason why this won't play or won't clean up and tidy up. I'm going to take these off. Yeah, I'll take these off so I can give the whole headstock a clean. They're kind of just got a bit of a bend to it. But yeah, these are fairly common in well, not older, but fairly common string tree methods. But it's metal against metal, and I think they're all, the slot down there is all the same size regardless of string size. So you know, you're hoping that the metal against metal and the slot size that runs through that little thing there, you're hoping that it's all the right adequate size for the strings to run smoothly without catching, and I have no assurance that that's the case. So an improvement I would suggest, Simon, would be to get some tusk string trees for this. It's one of the, I'm not a great fan of tusk in terms of putting it on bridges because, sorry, nuts, I'm using it as nuts because personally I don't find it as easy to work as I do bone. But it's great for string trees for sure. Okay, so Rally guitars. So I have a bit of a grudge, personal grudge thing going on here, because I think for the folks who, assuming this is a crap guitar because it's Chinese made, and therefore basically the impression is any Chinese Floyd Rose tremolo that isn't manufactured by Floyd Rose itself and made from zirconium, no, I'm being facetious, made from, you know, milled steel and or titanium or something, is going to be by default rubbish, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. So that's what we're looking for, a spare one of these chaps, and I can't see what this says on here. Yeah, it has a number, and I think it's got, it's the brand that Rally uses is, I've seen it on some of their Les Pauls has its own brand tuners. Sometimes on some I've seen a kind of Grover copy. I think I would say it's a copy, but anyway. So I'm partly doing this so I can actually get to all the finish on the headstock and clean it up completely, including taking off the horrible little made in China thing, which half ripped off doesn't really add anything, any allure of any kind to the finished item, so it's a goner in my book, and I'll take the rest off with some solvent. So a kind of early starty thing to do is just get this cleaned up, get all of that cleaned up, and then hang it up really out of the way while I hunt down a replacement tuner. Now the replacement tuner game is quite a fun game because I've got so many. It's ridiculous, but the question is, have I got any? Ooh, there we go. Well, have I got any that are even vaguely similar? So these are kidney beans in gold, and that isn't a kidney bean. We've got non-kidney beans in gold. So we have a gold option. We have a kind of tulip from Amsterdam option in gold again, which is not what we're looking for. And the alternatives then would be the kind of kidney bean shape in chrome as an alternative solution. And I'm not sure I've even got any of those kicking about, but I have to say there are a lot of bits and pieces floating about here worth digging through. Anyway, more tuners. Anything in there? No. Now, may have already edited down my spare tuners to this pile here. Got some more in there, but they're not going to be any gold ones. So really, what we want is something that does the job and doesn't stand out a mile. And Simon was saying that he's not hugely too concerned that it looks a little bit different from the others. So we'd end up with something that looks like that, which is quite not hugely dissimilar. Or we'd end up with one of these. Actually, that's assuming we even get a correct sided one. Is that the correct side? No, it's going the other way. Tell me they're all from the same side. That'd be funny. So at this point in time, I'm sure I've got some more kidney beans. And that's the other way as well. So let's not worry about that. So we're down to a couple of contenders. This is sheared off, so there's no way of taking that apart and fixing that. So that's that and that. This is, I think we don't need that, we've got a spare one. We might need, let's just try one of these. Sorry, I'm blethering. Does that fit? Okay, that will be, that's that, and that's that. So basically, at this stage, we've got this as a replacement alternative. I do have some more somewhere, but for the life of me, I don't know where. Maybe they're in here. A stash of old parts. Because the alternative would be to aim for a kidney-esque finish. No, I'm not sure I do have any more. I've got more sets in here, including a black set in, what are these, 6 locking tuners left hand, so they're going backwards, that's no good. Yeah, so basically I think I'm looking at that one there as a replacement. It'll do the job, it's as simple as that. Let's chuck it in the pot and worry about it later. There is another one somewhere I do have booting around. There's a single kidney style tuner somewhere, but I can't for the life of me find it right now. Okay, we'll come back to that. Right, so what we've got here is this unit, the so-called Floyd Rose, and we've got a standard thing. We've got intonation set through. What have we got? Okay, what we've got is we've got the locking bit here, which locks in the string. So let me get an Allen key to release those. Too big, too small. Cold hands, this should be the one. Okay, let's try this. Nice. Oh, out comes the string. So this is held on. This is one of the ones where it's held on by the force of these little blocks, and that's why it's quite good that we've got this. We've got these fairly strong units here. I've had some where you lock them down from above with very, very fiddly little attachment or a very fiddly little hex key things, and that can be really dodgy because they can break or strip the thread very quickly. Okay, so look, we've undone that. Now these crummy old strings need to go cut up basically into my metal bin. I'm trying to keep all the metal bits separate. Okay, so what have we got? Well, we've got a set of saddles which have been moved around a bit, but they're going to need to go back into a more of a familiar type of arrangement. So you can see by undoing these here, the saddle moves to and fro. Now this This is one of those things that's a bit of a beast to do, because with these things it's very difficult to move any of this stuff under load from the when the guitar's strung, and different Floyd Rose-y things behave in different ways. And let's see, do these go any further forward? Let's just try that first. Okay, so we've got maximum forward, maximum back. It's hard to know where to start, but I'm going to go start flush with the end. Actually, that's what I think. So the bridge is sitting, where's the bridge of the saddle, where's it sitting? Okay, well, let's start at that point there, and we'll step back a tiny bit, and then we'll come back for the A, the D, and then we'll push back for the A and the E. And if we run out of room, then I'll push them all forward a little bit, but I don't think we will. No, we've got enough room. That's a stagger, kind of pretty much works as a start point. It may be too far back. We've got two different places to stick the screw in. It's kind of generous. There's two different holes for locating for seating the intonation screw, so it gives you the opportunity to do that. This one's kind of coming off its, you might argue it's coming off its, it's just a bit too far out, so it wouldn't hold the thing down. So what you can do is to pull it all the way out, stick it on the end of your hex key, and chuck it back in the second of the two, and then just make sure it's positioned mostly. Okay, so that's kind of as far forward as it can go. Taking a gamble. It could be that it won't pay off. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just doing this from feel. Actually, that one is probably a bit, needs to be in the first hole again. Well, so far, my appraisal of this Chinese Floyd Rose unit is that it's behaving itself. Now, as to whether or not it performs very well under load is another issue altogether. Okay, that's about right for now. That's my staggering. Ignore that, the look of that, because I've used a different hole for that last one. So we've got. Actually, tell you what I like to do with these, just to make them sure they last a bit longer. I like to put a little bit of grease on these units while I'm at it. So take out things like this and just put a tiny bit of grease on it. Make sure that it goes in and out well. One of them looked a little bit bent, fraction bent. Again, not too bad, nothing critical. But so anyway, yeah, sorry, just off the camera there. I've just tightened them all back in, but I'm just putting a little bit of. This is good old what kind of grease? Well, grease gun grease that I had from bike fixing days, I think. But it's quite useful for little things like this, just to take a bit of the dryness of the thread away. Especially, I like to do it because on this Chinese metal, it's not the strongest stuff in the world. But I'll tell you now, this thing has got inserts in it, right? So it's not going straight into the metal at all. These are going into coiled, or what do they call it, helicoil or whatever. So this is not a badly made little unit. Somebody's, you know, taken some time to make sure that it's going to last. That's one positive thing. Okay, the same with these. These are a little bit, right now, these are a little bit dry, but actually they don't come all the way out by the looks of it, so that might be an anti-loss device. So I'm not going to bother doing anything to those, but you can see that the way they work is that you screw them down and then they put a bit of extra bend pressure to tighten the string. So obviously you need, when you first set up, you need to be it depends, mostly out, a couple of turns in, because it's usually, seems to be usually further inwards you need to tighten them to get to the equilibrium, but we'll come back to that. The only other thing was, it's a little bit kind of sticky around this thingy here when I put the tremolo on, although it did want to go all the way down. It just didn't want to do it the first time, but it's definitely fitting into there, as you can see. So knowing that that fits, I could go and buy fairly confidently buy a standard Chinese gold one. I could either get one for a couple of quid or £1.50 or something and wait 2 weeks, or we can probably get them for about £5, not so far away. Yeah, UK get it in a couple of days. Okay, look, I'm encouraged by that. Just looking close up at the edges of this, there's a really interesting set of discussions to be had around this unit, or these kinds of units, and some people, I regularly get people commenting on my videos, people saying that they see me with a Floyd Rose-style tremolo, and they ask me why did I lower the action. Sometimes I dial the action down with the strings on and the tremolo in play, and their concern is that they're worried that turning the tremolo post will cause damage to the blade. Now, I can understand that concern because we have got metal against metal. I'm trying to do my bit for recycling here, by the way. I want to be able to get rid of this stuff all in one metal place. Yeah, I understand people's concerns somewhat, but there's an interesting thing. I'm cautious. I'm probably about as cautious as anybody I've ever known. And the argument basically that's been put is if you were to turn these with the force of the strings pulling that way and the springs pulling that way, which is what keeps your guitar in equilibrium around this knife point or the knife edge. And the argument holds, if I were to make a turning motion using an Allen key here, then it's dangerous and it will damage the faces of these tremolo plates, or either it will damage the blade or it will damage the the post. Now, from a kind of complete underheaded logical position, right? Imagine what you've got here. You've got chrome plated metal, right? First of all, I'm not saying you have that on all tremolos systems, and the more expensive ones are probably solid, stainless steel or something. But on this, you've got chrome plated metal, and it's an unknown metal. Now, the first thing is, if you look at this, in all the years this guitar has been living, it hasn't worn away, flattened off, or broken. And in fact, I'll take this indoors and I'll take some close-up pictures of it, kind of just to add to this argument or this thesis of mine. So, the first argument is that these things are made of cheese and they're absolute shite and they're going to immediately destroy. Well, when you get to see the close-up pictures of the edges of this, there's a tiny little bit of discoloration where I can tell you the chrome's probably come off. But there's no, when I turn this in here, there's no resistance, there's no shaggy edges, or scratching, crunching. It's smooth. That edge is smooth, and this receiving edge is smooth. So this crummy piece of Chinese made so-called Floyd Rose, right? No matter what it's made of, this has functioned for all the years that guitar's been in existence, which could be 10 or 15. It's functioned under load, constant load, right, however long it's had strings on, and in all that time of being used, right, that has not worn those two faces to any perceptible degree that will stop it operating. Okay, that's the first thing. And again, you know, I'll show you the close-ups, and you might argue over, you know, to the tune of a couple of microns of material, because you can't have zero wear. But I would say that there's no significant damage that would stop this operating. You know, its job is to just move up and down on that point as and when. So the bit that never rang true or made sense to me is when people say, okay, look, if you turn that like a whole turn with the underload, you're going to irreparably damage either the edge or the post. And my concern about that argument is, where's the evidence, or what's the mechanism by which that happens? Now, given this thing is pressed metal to metal for let's call it 15 years, since, or maybe more, but 15 years since this guitar was built, this has been shoved against that metal to metal face for all of that time. Not only that, it's been banged up and down manually for as many hours as somebody's played the tremolo on this thing, and it's designed to do that. Now, I want to know how turning this adds greater force, or the mechanism by which turning that while it's sitting under load will do any more mechanical damage to it than doing that for hours on end every day, or leaving it sat in physical contact under massive string loading. How is that going to do any more harm? I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm saying I don't see a mechanism for it. And I'm the kind of person who, I have to say, I just don't go for things just because there's a view that holds. You know, I want to know, I want to get a sense of why that would be. Because I suppose in a way, one of the reasons for it is, if you say, well, okay, in order to change the action you've got to slack all the strings off. Well, fine, okay, maybe do it. But there's a whole school of thought that says slack your strings off when you put a guitar in a case and send it. Why? You know, I'm of the old Scott Grove school of thinking, which says, this is wood you're talking about. This neck is incredibly strong. It's built to stand the force of those strings for its entire life. You know, why do I need to... why do I think that putting it in a box and transporting it somewhere is going to suddenly, that piece of incredibly strong flexible wood is going to suddenly succumb to the forces of the string loading out of the blue? And I just don't buy it, I'm afraid. And, you know, I'm with Scott Grove on that. But some people hate him. I know he's a Marmite sort of guy, but you know, the point is, whether you like him or not, it's not the issue. It's the fact that the argument that or the objection that he raises to it, I find is very valid. Why is that going to suddenly, why is putting it in a box and sending it overseas suddenly going to mean that the string loading becomes suddenly too great for the neck to withstand? And the point is, it's just something that people, seems to me to be something that people believe fervently in, and it becomes a kind of acceptable or conventional wisdom to the point where everybody does it. And you know, I don't buy into that stuff just for the sake of it. Anyway, so I have a similar approach, as you can see, to the issue of the tremolo blades, and I'll be really kind of interested to see. I'll photograph this up close and have a really good close look at this, and I would love to run a longer term test on a tremolo such as this. It's got some grime on it. A tremolo such as this, and just you know, bang the hell out of it, turn it, screw it, do all kinds of stuff to it, to find out what it really does over time to those faces, because I can't see the mechanism by which it's going to cause more problems. So I've tightened those pots up, so they're going to function a lot better than before. Well, they're going to feel a lot better than before. I'll still clean the rest of this up now. But overall, this is in this pickguard is in pretty good nick. Nothing to worry about it. It's just got some grime on it that will hopefully clean up a bit now, and then we can put it aside, ready for replacing back on the guitar. But the real issue here is going to be getting the playing action good and making sure that we can level and clean up the frets, or if they need to be level the frets, and then get a nice playing guitar, nice playing budget guitar out of it, I should say. I'm just trying to clean off some of the kind of initial residual gunge from its previous life. It's never going to be a terribly clean pickguard because it's got some scratching, but since we've got the cleaning goo out, let's get a quick going over, and I'll stop for a bit then while what are we going to do first after I've done this? I don't really know. Now this is, it's okay. I thought that might be flicking the name taggy thing, but it's alright. So I'm just cleaning off some of its old gunge, including the remains of the sticky stuff that kept the made in China thing on. And then I'll get round to the front and clean up the fingerboard as much as possible. So the only odd thing about this will be, for the time being, will be a replacement tuner, and it's fine because it's a complete spare and I've got no other home for it. So Simon, you can have that one gratis. I much prefer things to be in use than sitting in a tray. It's just good to have them, and people have been very kind and donated bits and pieces to me over the time, so I'm more than happy to let something go to a new home when it needs to. So I'm just giving this a quick scrub down just to get rid of any of the residual stuff. It's pretty clean, and to be fair. So on a guitar like this, the first fret action is dictated by the precision of the zero fret, not the zero fret, the that thing, the locking nut. So it'd be interesting to see when this is put back together again and the action set to a decent level. It'd be very interesting to see just how good that is. You can make minor adjustments if you're really way off and it's horrible to play. We could file minor adjustments into it, but I would prefer not to. It's one of those things that it's always a good example of how the manufacturing works on a guitar or in a factory, because if you take someone like Ibanez, which uses these locking nuts all the time, you've got to be really spot on with your tolerances and your manufacturing to get this right. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that 1 or 2 0.1 or 0.1 or 0.2 of a millimeter difference will spoil the playing action over that vital first fret. And so for a nice Ibanez to be set just right, you basically have to get the tolerances perfectly on your manufacturing of these units, which is probably easier in metal, but then you've got to get the tolerance right on your installation here. And I'm just noticing this is actually on a plastic shim or metal shim, so it may be that that's part of how they do it at the Rally factory, instead of manufacturing the wood to some probably unfeasible level of accuracy. When you I don't want to do that, I was knackered. When you consider that it's going to swell or lose water and rehydrate and so on, you might not ever be able to get that perfectly accurate in manufacturing. But maybe a simple way of doing it is having a series of plates or series of shims of certain thickness that you can drop it on, test it for the first fret action, and then settle on a shim underneath it. I mean, it would be kind of easy to manufacture that way. But if it's whether it's achieved with a shim or whether it's achieved by perfect machining in the first place, it's still, if we put the thing together and the first fret action is by default pretty good, then that's a good sign of a well-made guitar, whether it's budget or not. So I think that'll be one of the other little telltale things on this Rally. That's my old one here, not the right shape. In fact, we might be able to even find, have we got anywhere got a golden, if we only had a golden kidney, we could screw that on, but we don't. We've probably somewhere got, probably somewhere got a black kidney. Yes, we have. We've got 6 black kidneys. That would look a bit odd. Or we've probably got a chrome kidney. That's really all we need to change on this, if we change anything. But hey, okay, so there's a little bit of a clean up on those chromed bits. So again, while we've got this out, let's just give that a quick, much of a clean over as possible. It's pretty clean to begin with. Some of the gunge, dust and shine stuff from under there, sorry. Don't want to put rude word advisories. Okay. So that's that. That's nice and clean. Happy with that. Actually a tiny bit more of a scrub there. Then what I'll do is, again, while I've got the Coleman's cleaning fluid to hand, I'll pick up the body again. Right, we're going to need to refit these strap buttons, so I'm going to take them off just for now anyway, because they're spinning at the moment. Come on, lights. One, two. Yeah, it's a bit, it's like a personal grudge setup, this one, because I'm a fan of the humble budget guitar that deserves to be given the benefit of the doubt in situations like this. But hey, I will admit that if I can't make it play well, then I will admit defeat. So this is interesting in many ways as any. Oh, it's very interesting for me to see this guitar come through, because, you know, not having seen one before in this particular model, it's always interesting for me to compare it to the other Rallys. Now this is just a sort of clean up with the old naphtha stuff, which goes quite a long way to getting rid of stuck on grime and various stuff. But if you really want to liven things up, you can do worse than to get hold of some of that nice guitar scratch remover stuff. Some people swear by some other auto type products, but I think the guitar scratch remover people have done quite a good job, because in my experience it does work better than just about anything else I've ever tried. Now I'm noticing right down here a little crack, but it's only a crack in the lacquer that goes just out to the wood here, and it's come from this screw hole here, and that's it. It's nothing major. So there we are, look, a bit cleaned up. Now that's kind of Jackson Adrian Smith colour territory at the moment. That's sort of Arctic white. Again, we've got just a couple of dents there, but this is at £85 including postage. This was never going to win the concourse first prize. This is about function over form, really. That's not true. It's still going to look pretty good. Okay, there you go, look, Arctic white or some such. And that really is good enough to put in the oven for later. And here we have our pickguard cleaned up as much as we can anyway. It's quite difficult to scrub in anyway, because you've got dangling pickups, obviously, which are delicate. And we've got what, white knobs in here? Yeah, white knobs. Examine the inside of those. Okay, standard stuff, nothing, I just wondered why they were so difficult to get off, but who knows. So again, this could benefit from a little bit of polishing with a clean cloth once we've put it back together, or all back together again. But again, I'm going to just clean off the sort of any build-up of gunge and dust on the inside, just because that's my kind of, I was going to say CPR, but it's not CPR, it's OCD. I hope somebody doesn't confuse the two when I'm in need of it one day. What I'll do while I'm at it is I'll just give it a quick zap of air and a quick zap of contact cleaner in the business end of the pots and in the switch. Just kind of ahead of the game, really. Always highly recommended, if you do this, you do it away from the body, because this stuff has the propellant in there can seriously damage your paintwork. So that's another kind of good reason for pulling it out, or having the pick guard completely out long enough to do a clean through a shot of goodness. Right, so I'll stand that up there out of the way. Okay, so we're in a kind of early stages, really. We found a replacement. Shame there isn't the kidney thing. But anyway, we've got a replacement tuner which we'll put on. The guitar will work, and the next stage will be to, what I'll do is I'm going to get it strung, put back together again, all connected up, and then I'm going to string it up with some sacrificial strings, and I will set the tremolo flat, kind of not doing anything, so that it will just be as if it was hard-tailed. So I guess it will be sat back down on its haunches. Well, I don't suppose there's any. So you can do it either way, which way. Some people have said, do you do the fret leveling with the tremolo kind of in its active position, or do you do it? It depends. Sometimes if it's a strat style thing, I'll just kind of put the tremolo flat on the deck with string pressure, and then I'll use that as a fixed hard tail to set the playing action, get the neck into relief, and then do the fret leveling. I could do the same with this, but actually you could basically get the whole of the action set the way you want it, get the tremolo into play in its slightly tilted position, so it's got backwards and forwards movement. But you just have to then get all your action set first, whereas if you did the fret leveling with it hard-tailed, when you come to bring up the action, your action will raise, and you'll have to do some more lowering work, which is where the issue about turning these things has come in the past. But anyway, so look, I'm going to stop now on this for the time being. Good start. I'm going to take this indoors. I'm going to take some close-up pictures of these components, just so I can give you an idea of, or give myself a good idea of this issue about, I won't say misconceptions, but people's feelings about the overall weakness of this kit. I mean, I've got these cheap, just out of interest, I bought these cheap, quote-unquote, Chinese tremolo units here. It's pretty much exactly the same kind of thing, made under license, yada yada yada. Same principle. Actually, not that much difference in terms of quality. And here you've got a steel piece here. You've got the same double things here. You've got the locking things here. So it's kind of effectively a different builder, but effectively the exact same thing. And by the same token, we have the posts that this works to. So you won't be able to see it because it's black, but similar kind of thing, metal on metal. And people would tell me that was junk and it just wasn't worth fitting. And I'm not sure about this at all. I think the Chinese have got things pretty good the way they need to be. So this is really good. In fact, I'll take this in too, because I'm going to compare the surfaces, at least on the blade. on these two things, you know, basically we've got one that's 15 or so years old and one that's quote unquote brand new. All right, and I think what we might find is there isn't that much substantive difference between these two, and that's quite a good telling point on its own. So I'll see you in a little bit. Hope this is still recording. Has the battery run out yet? No. Oh, but it's not charging. Ah, bizarre. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to be aware of this. Good day. Welcome back to the Really Love Guitars workshop, and I've got Simon's white Rally Thingocaster, Super Strat you might call it here, with some sticky stuff on it, ready to be reassembled. Now what I'm going to do is, the intention here, having taken it apart and cleaned it up, checked it all out, and also while I was at it I took the sneaky opportunity of making myself some templates for future Super Strat Floyd Rose-style tremolo cutouts, just in case. You know, when you've got one in front of you and you've taken it apart already, you might as well get down there and copy out the shape of it. And so I've made myself a series of staged templates which will work. And because basically the unit that's on here is exactly the same as the unit that I've got, and as I've already indicated on this thing, I don't buy into the fact that these are useless tremolo systems. But you know, as I said on the video and in comments on Facebook, you know, if I'm wrong, and if this thing at the end of this just does not work as a tremolo, then I will hold my hand up and say so. Since yesterday I've taken close-up pictures of this, and I've also taken some close-up pictures of a vintage €400 tremolo thingy unit from off of online, anyway, you know what I mean. And to compare the two, and obviously I couldn't get the same kind of high res that I necessarily wanted, but I got a good look, and actually there's hardly any difference between the condition of the faces on this unit and on this €400 thing. Now obviously a brand new one made of very good quality steel out of the box is going to be cleaner on the edges. There won't be that little bit of rust that we can see in there. But you know, in my comments on Facebook, I've said, you know, take this in perspective. If you zoom back out on a high magnification, you can see the face damage on this. But remember, it's 10 or so years old, and according to some people it's Swiss cheese, so it should just be, it'll be broken in seconds of use, but it isn't clearly. And when you do this thing here and you rotate this, not that it rotates, you can't feel any major corrosion. And the thing it's intended to do, which is pivot up and down on this cinched waist of the post, I don't know what the correct term is, the thing it's intended to do, it does. And so I have no worries about this working as a unit. Now, the thing I have to tell you about this unit is that it doesn't have any, the bridge doesn't have any independent height adjusters on here. So we are kind of limited by the range of height adjustment on these posts themselves. Okay, so if I need a higher action, I will raise the posts in the whole unit. If I need a lower action, I'll take them down. However, we are at the rock bottom here, and the thing I think we're going to find out is that this neck stroke tremolo body configuration is probably at its it's not able to get low enough to the kind of action I want for this guitar, which means that we may well be, I could be wrong. I mean, you'd be surprised if it was that far out. It has a little shim in under there as it is, so obviously the technicians in the factory have kind of gone to make it some way towards where they want it to be. So what I'm going to do is, I'm heading towards, at this point, setting the guitar up and fret leveling. Now for that to happen, I actually don't need any of the electrics in the way or involved, so I can kind of, if I want to, I can leave those off. I'm just interested in the geometry of the neck under load. So for this I need the neck refitted as I intend it to be, and on top of that I need some sacrificial strings to put on here. straight off I'm going to have to assume that the alignment of the neck is in fairly good order. If it isn't, we'll adjust that later by slacking the strings off and moving things. So I'm just gently tapping these all in first before I tighten up. Now I'm going with a 5 setting on this torque thing, which is quite low, and there'll be room for a bit of hand tightening as well, but I don't need to worry about that just now. I can come back to that when the guitar's ready. Now the thing that is going to interest me right now, before I go any further, is to lay this in here, and what I'm going to do is kick my ruler. I'm going to find, maybe I'm not going to find, where I put my little bit of, I had a nice little wedge of wood. Anthony Wedgwood Ben, here it is. Just I don't know, just keep it up as if it was in sort of full backwards as well as going forwards. It's just a test for now. So what I want to just do is see what we've got when we've got, let's say, the E string coming off its saddle going into that slot. Okay, so that is about, I would say that is about bang on, but with no leeway on the downsideness, if you get what I'm getting at. Let's have a, so at its lowest extent is what I'm saying, is we're getting just about the right playing action, but that's at its lowest possible extent. Let's have a, you can't see this, but let me see what it says. Oh, I can't see this either. Let's see what it says under there. No, that moved. We'll do this again with a different hand. So as those who've seen my videos before know that for my reference, I work off the, actually that's bang on, that's absolutely spot on, 1 millimetre below E. I think we can, well, I say we can get away with that. That's the wrong way of putting it. At its proper setting, this gives the perfect action, good rally. I must put credit where credit's due. Good on you, Rally, because that's who's done it, not me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now replace the tuners. This is, by the way, a temporary arm just for the purposes of this setup. I've got a gold arm on order, but it may not be here till Saturday, tomorrow, or possibly later. So we just have to hold fire on that for the time being. But it's on its way, and I'm pretty confident that it should fit, because it's sort of standard quote unquote cheapy. Now those are not tuner screws, these are. Yeah, so we should, with a bit of luck, let's get the right things out, sorry about this. Yeah, the gold arm should arrive, but this will do for now as a just a means to test the tremolo. Now I'm going to, when it comes to it, I'm going to use the famous Galeazzo Freddua method of setting the Floyd Rose. And it's a funny one because some people may find it amusing, because I have to think it through every time. It's not the most intuitive thing, but at the same time it is quite a straightforward thing to do. Now, what should we do? Should we put this one down at the bottom end of things? Yeah, let's put this unusual beast down at the bottom, and then we'll, oh, there's a headless one. Yeah, so the thing about the key thing about a Floyd Rose tremolo is that it's actually, if you look at this, it's very logical, and there's partly the logic behind it, even though it seems exotic and worrying when you look at it first time. The logic behind it is quite reassuring in that it only has to do a certain thing, and the thing it does isn't magical, right? Its purpose is purely to obviously to bend the strings backwards or forwards. just as all tremolo systems are, or vibrato systems, but this one, the reason why this one is more complex than, shall we say, your Stratocaster 6-screw system is that this one it does the same thing. It's designed to pivot forward and backwards if you want it to, or sit flat if you don't want to use it at all. But like a Strat tremolo, it's designed to kind of dive bomb and go backwards. And the only difference between this and the Strat 6-screw one, they both have 6 individual intonatable saddles. The only difference is this extra bit here, which is your micro tuners, which in combination with your locking nut at this end gives you, if you get your setup right, gives you an amazing amount of tuning stability. And the tuning stability, and this is really important when people kind of misthink things, but they kind of attribute tuning stability to the wrong things. I keep hearing people say, oh, it's a cheap tremolo, it's a cheap Floyd Rose, cheap Chinese Floyd Rose, therefore it will not stay in tune, right? You've got to try and be logical about this, no matter what your belief system is on this. There's only, first of all, there's the primary place where you're going to get tuning instability is in your strings. Okay, if the strings have slack in them, no matter what you do, whether it's a locking system or an ordinary guitar, every time you bend a note, right, you'll pull out some more of this slack and the note will detune. So for ages, and I've seen it for years, you can still pull out slack and detune the note. So you've got to get all of that out. Once you've got that, you're sure you've got all of that out. The only places that this could possibly detune is by pulling through the tuner. It never does. No tuners, I've never seen a tuner unwind under tension. The gearing system prevents it. Or that it's not secured here at the locking nut, in which case there can be an uneven pressure either side and you're pulling a bit through to equalize. Or these things here are somehow not working. Or the other thing is that your microtuners may be faulty, but they can't be. Same reason as these aren't ever. And also the only other way is your string's actually pulling out from its anchor point here, which is secured by these kind of bolty things, which are designed to clamp the string tightly into position. Now this one is slightly bent, so it's going to just be a little harder to do up, but the rest of them are fine. So what I'm trying to get across is that in principle there's very, very little for your tuners. I'm just going to take this off. To detune on a system like this, and it's just too easy for people to blame. It's like people say, you know, Strat tremolos are impossible to keep in tune. It's not. The only thing that's going wrong when your Strat detunes is the basic principles I've just mentioned about your two things. One is that there's slack still in your strings. After, doesn't matter how many years you've had it, you haven't got all the slack out. That's the number one source of instability. And the second one, or co-equal first, I suppose, in first place. The other one is your nut slots are too tight and they are causing a build-up of uneven pressure either side. So it's kind of holding the string, not letting it equalize the pressure, and then when you come to bend it, the pressure equalizes itself, and it does so by going slightly flat. Those two things, the slack in your strings and the gripping nut slots, are pretty much the only two things you've got to fight against when you're trying to get a guitar that plays and stays in tune. And it's amazing how many people don't want to. I'm not going to actually even screw this one in for now, because I think Simon might find an alternative at some point, in which case he can replace it, because it's a different position hole, that's what I'm saying. So let's just have this done up under nut pressure only. Yeah, so it's amazing how often people want to blame the tuners for lack of tuning stability. You know, and if you go on forums, everybody's advising everybody else to buy more expensive tuners and so on. And I understand that, you know, there are some reasons for doing that. More expensive tuners have better gearing and they feel better to use, but in actual fact they don't guarantee any better tuning stability. And people hate to believe it, because we have this belief system that says, this one's bent, so just be careful. We have a belief system that says, you know, more expensive things are better than cheaper things. You know, we tend to feel better about ourselves when we spend more on ourselves, therefore ... Anyhow, it's, I have to tell you, it isn't entirely true. So what let's get this through here. So what we'll find is, despite this looking incredibly complicated, it's actually very straightforward. And once you've put your springs on and you've got this in place and you've started to load it with the strings, and I've got a sacrificial set of strings here. The hardest bit is holding this in place and putting the springs on. Actually, it's not. Sorry, it's not difficult when you've got no counter weight. It's just fiddly. Where did I put them? Yeah. The only challenging thing about putting the floating Floyd Rose thing on is stabilising your tuning first, i.e. getting rid of all the slack. Now if you don't have the nut slots problem, typically if it's got a locking nut at the other end, that tends to have been machine cut pretty accurate, usually pretty accurately. Okay, there's our 3 springs in place. Now they're obviously holding the thing down right now, which is leaning on this little foam pad, so it's not a problem at all. Now what we're going to get is we still need access to this back part, so ideally you want to be able to lift this up and either do it from the back or probably even better from the side, but you don't want to crimp. You've just got to be careful you're not crimping the paintwork as you do it. So a big flat soft wood thing kind of tends to be good. I'll probably lock these and then move it across to access the other ones at the back. So anyway, the issue with this is we get these sacrificial strings and we're going to string the guitar by chopping off the end. Now I need the correct locking which is not this one, it's this one. In fact, I may have a handheld one that's probably easier to use in this situation with a little ball on the end. Yeah, okay. So first off, I'm going to now, I can just get a better view, a better angle. You still running? You are. Oh, I'm starting on the wrong side to begin with. Right. Move this across. Okay, let's begin with our low E, which I know has got a slight curve or bend in it, so it's going to be a little bit pain in the backside. So if you undo it, basically the string only can go down to the bottom of this little cavity, and then you want to tighten it up with the string held. Now with this little ball thing, I'm really not going to do a massive tightening. I'd rather use the L-shape Allen key to do this. And then through here, I'm just going to pull it through and just give it a bit of extra lead on. Now the reason for that is it doesn't need to have a kind of complex winding at the other end, simply because it's going to be locked down anyway, so I just need enough to go through. Now this is, I'm pretty sure this is a set of 10s, and that's what I'm hoping it is anyway. I'll quickly measure this low E. So yeah, the trick on the the trick of the tremolo, the Floyd Rose, is to, like I said, get rid of all of the slack in your system first. That will interfere with your tuning stability. I have a feeling this might be 9s actually. Okay, well, I could say it doesn't really matter, because you can just make adjustments afterwards if necessary. I'd rather do it with 10s if that's what we're going to put on, but I don't want to use new 10s. So, where am I going to get? I have got a set of 10s in the house on the guitar, which I was going to change out anyway. So that's probably as good a time to do it as any. So hold your horses. I think now I've chopped the ball off the end of that, I'm going to chop this away. Oh well, I need to chop them up again, don't I? I will get rid of this set of sacrificial things. Right, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to go and de-string a guitar in the house that I wanted to put new strings on anyway, and as a result I'm going to get myself some sacrificial strings. So I shall see you back here in a little while. Okay, Okay, I've got my strings. Don't know, but I've also got some other things. I've got some salvaged mahogany, which I'm going to bring in and leave to dry out a bit. I've got more than this, I'll show you now. This is the remains of an old snooker table. Can't be a very big one, judging by this, but it's got this great pattern embossed into it, carved into it. But there's some luscious great bits out here. So you can guess what's coming next. Don't know how well you can see the grain on that, but all thanks to my pal James for supplying this, contributing it to the Real Guitars Hall of Timber Shame. Just get this sort of propped up there for a minute. Bit of a tidy up this afternoon, but I've got something else. From the same source, and this is quite bizarre. I've had some weird and wonderful guitars through in the past, but I don't even know what you would call this. I'm holding it like it's a guitar, but somebody's actually made this thing, and not only have they made it, they've also put a truss rod in it, and it's the flattest, weirdest thing, but it's like somebody's done a lot of effort to try and make a guitar that looks like a guitar, and even has cutouts, chisel outs for pickups and everything. And that whole bit there is an insert, carefully cut out and fitted. Somebody's done this with a labour of love, and a neck that I guess used to at one point be screwed in or something, but it's been glued in finally. So we've got this odd neck with 0 radius on it, a headstock that's been cut from the same piece but then had an added piece added to the back to kind of bulk it out to allow it to be shaped, so it's technically almost a neck. I don't know. James had this dropped off to him at the recycling place, and obviously somebody's kid has had a go at making an electric guitar, and looks like they've even stuck on, there's some glue residue here, they've tried to stick on a bridge of some kind, but it's quite amazing. I don't think it's do anything a bullable with. I mean, it really wouldn't be worth fighting for. I thought you might enjoy a quick look at it before it took its rightful place in the probably the dustbin of life. I mean, this is even, hang on a minute, this is even contoured. It's like a carved top, or is it a kind of belly carve or something, or yeah, some sort of belly carve-ish. Anyway, it's just the weirdest thing. Yeah, it's quite odd. Somebody's even put tremolo claw screws in there in the past, and the neck is made from 3 pieces, for several pieces, but yeah, it's got no radius as such. At this point in time it's practically flat, but you know, I mean, you could make a guitar out of it, but I'm not sure I'd want to. Anyway, I thought that'd be fun just to I don't know, set fire to sometimes. Sorry about that. Right, quick back to reality. So I've got some strings here. These are 10s. I've just taken them off the Eki Telecaster that I made that's indoors at the moment. These have already been used as sacrificial strings on something, so it's a double set of lease of life for these things. Okay, so we're back to where we were, which is, let's get these strings anchored down. I think this is one of the crudest methods of attaching strings to anything I could possibly imagine. you're holding them in place by the sheer weight of friction. One thing pressing against another thing that isn't really got any inherent grip on it or purchase. It's just very odd why it's so difficult to create a thing where you can actually put the ball part of the string through there. I mean, that would make a lot more sense, but sense is not the game here. So I'm just going to do these first of all. Just checking in here. I'm going to have a quick look. I'm pretty sure there's no further the string can go. Sometimes you can't see that it does just go underneath, but this is flat to the bottom by the looks of it. So I don't think there is any. It's very bright. I don't think, no, there is no further inherently will go. So whew, sorry about that. Which makes the area of grippaging even more bizarre, or bizarrely small. Anyway. So yeah, that's okay. So I'm getting in the right direction. So I'm going to put on these strings, and once they're on, and then I'm going to, in this case, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to worry about, I'm not really worried about the tuning stability in this case, because that comes a bit later. Right now I'm more concerned about getting them on and getting the neck loaded and concentrating on the setting the playing action. But I guess I'm going to need to do it with approximation of where the tremolo is going to sit when all's said and done. Now these aren't, let's just before I do anything else, let's just put a bit of right angled, whatchamacallit, that thing, Allen key on it. Really make sure these things are gripping. God, it's so crude, this method of doing it. You're just pressing this thing against the string and saying, right, that's going to hold it against all the, not only all the forces of the string load, but it's going to hold it against tremolo use and everything. Okay, now I'll just bring this across there to the other side. We'll get on with these. So I don't do so many of these with this kind of Floyd thing, so you just have to forgive me if I faff about a bit figuring out what I'm going to do. But like I said, or like I was trying to explain, they're essentially in many ways the same as any floating tremolo. Your tremolo will sit in a dynamic kind of tension with a balance between the strings pulling over the top in one direction and effectively the springs pulling in the opposite direction from underneath. What you end up doing is you end up balancing the two out with the tremolo at a, sorry, let's go back. You end up balancing the two out so that the tremolo sits in this state of equilibrium with its tail up. Now the only technical issue in all of that requires a system or some thinking is how do you get it to where, how do you get it to sit at the exact place it needs to give you, yes, your endless downward diving, but also a sort of fairly fixed and dependable level of sharp notes. And that bit is, some people don't bother with that at all. They just get it floating in a sort of a way that gives them some backwards movement, and as long as it's stable tuning, they're happy, because kind of most people spend their time dive bombing downwards, and as long as it does that, then they tend to be quite pleased with it. But part of the discipline or the skill is to get it set up with a dependable range of backward or up sharp bending, and for that I use a method worked out by Galeazzo Frudua. Who knows how to pronounce that name? I'm sure he'll tell us one day, but he's a very well respected and very skilled luthier, Italian chap, and he has his own channel, and he not only does guitar things, but he also is an authority on Beatles harmonies and Beatles tribute, playing in I think he also plays in the Beatles tribute band, and is just an all-round talented chap. But he has some very simple, or simply laid out methods on YouTube for setting all kinds of tremolos, whether they're the 6-screw strat ones, the 2-point floating ones like on the standard strats or the American strats, and Mexican strats, is it? Anyway, and also some how to do the Floyd Rose, and I'm going to consult that one. I haven't done it for a while, so I'll use his method, which means I'll go have a look on my phone and just refresh myself. I'm pretty comfortable using his method for the standard 6-screw business. Okay, so I'm just getting this first of all loaded a bit, getting everything in place. Now if I were to take away the block now, this is going to fall back. That's interesting. That one went for a walk. That means it can't be fully locked down. Let me just prop this up a minute and have a quick look with the there you go, that jumped forward. So under load it's going to do that, so let me just make sure these are tightened up first, take the most of the loading off. So I'm going to get them into the basic position I have a feeling they should be in, and then I'm going to lock them down like this, and then again revert to, if I can, a right angled locking thing. This is this is the intonation locks. This when you're pretty sure you've got the saddles where they should be, under load they're going to want to pull forward. So again, it's a brute force situation. These downward locking screws, their job is to hold these saddles from pulling forward. And again, it's incredibly primitive because it's friction that's doing it. And by the way, before anyone says, it's nothing to do with this being a Chinese unit and surely Floyd Rose originals are so much better, or German made ones are so much better. They're all doing the same basic thing if they use the friction method. Now, if I take this off now, we just watch this tilt back. Okay, so what we have now is we have as a default, we've got a string that's broken. Is it broken, or has it just popped out? I think it's just popped out. Let's try that again. That's some of the difficulty when you use sacrificial strings. You're starting with stuff that's a bit mangled to begin with. Let's try and get this to hold in place. So here, what I was going to do was to just check the movement of the tremolo with the strings on. If I can just get this thing threaded through again. Holy cow. Right, lock it in place, please. Okay, so you can see that the tremolo is up, tilted off its backside, so the pull on the strings is currently countering the pull on the springs, and the amount of tension on the springs can be varied obviously by either more springs or pushing this tremolo claw that way. The Galeazzo Freddua method for setting your floating tremolo is really good because it kind of dictates where this ends up, and it isn't a cosmetic thing or an arbitrary thing. This becomes, in that method of setting up your tremolo, this becomes a tuning device, and it kind of dictates itself where this will end up sitting. So right now I'm not going to do anything with it until we get into that method, but as you can see, we're not up to tuning. Now if you're going to tune, I haven't got one here, have I? Have I? Yeah, maybe I have. I've got an old guitar. No, it's my first ever Oakcaster in tune. So when you're doing a floating tremolo and setting it up, you've got to use an actual reference set of tunes. You can't do it by relative tuning. So you go, well, you can start where you like, but let's start at the bottom. Now as soon as I tune this one, that one's going to change. Now people think, there's a fear that when you do this, you'll keep going forever until all the strings break. But logically you won't, because you'll only keep going until the amount of pull on your strings equals exactly the amount of backwards pull on your springs, okay, or opposite pull on your springs, and it won't go any further. See, I'm tuning less each time now. So what you're going to see is pretty soon I'm going to get to a stable tuning. So let's say we've got there where we wanted to get to. Okay, and now we have a guitar with the back end kicked up, the tremolo in fully floating position, and it's in tune. Okay, now I don't expect it to stay beautifully in tune right now, because there may be an unknown amount of slack in these strings, and it's not locked off anywhere. The point is, nice. Now it's a lot of backward movement, so if you typically you would want a tone, half a tone on the high E. That's about, sorry, half a tone, but we're going a tone here. We're not going back to any fixed point. So typically you might go back until it hits the deck on a strat, but on a Floyd Rose you can choose where you want to go. If you choose to go backwards, how do I put this? If you want only a tone, and if you want half a tone on the E, a tone on the B, and a tone and a half on the G. See, way too much range. So just crudely, without going into the Galeazzo Frugio method, I can tell straight away that this is kicked forward far too much for what we need. It's got too much of a backwards range. We only need half of that. And again, it depends where you kind of call your end point, because as I said, this will be quite hard to get it to actually hit the rubber deck. But in a way, since you've got that amount of movement, that's what you really want. This is built with a bit of backwards movement into this cavity, but a strat that sits on the plate can, if it sits up, it can only ever go back that far. These are built to go, if you like, back below the thing, so you don't want it this far up. So how do you stop it going this far up? Well, what you do is, if you're going to do this crudely, this is not the Galeazzo method, you can say, right, straight away, when this is in tune, that is far too high up, which means my springs are too not strong enough, sorry. So what I'm going to do, this is like I said, this is the crude method for the purpose of getting close, and you can do it this way, but you still have to think it through. What we get is, we get our big screwdriver and we go, right, let's take these things right in. Now of course the funny part about this is that you're always going over the top of the claws, which makes accessing these screws kind of difficult. Now, if I was strictly following the Fredua method, this would be part of the process of sort of counting the number of turns or doing a particular thing. But so now, without any tension on, we're starting flat. Now we can do that thing again. I mean, this is pot luck. I'm doing it the pot luck method, and you can actually get pretty good results if you don't want to learn the Galeazzo method. So what we can do is we get this to tune again, get it stabilised, won't take long. See, the logic is the more I do it, the less I'm tuning each time. Right, let's call that there for the time being. So you saw what I did between the two is I've screwed in the screws a bit more, and this is now kicking up but not anywhere near as far, but we're in tune roughly. Now let's look at what the range we've got is, and this is the hit and miss method, and it's perfectly viable to do this. You just have to have trust that as long as you tune to a reference guitar, this will stabilise where it needs to. Now, pinged off again. Right, I'll just put a substitute string in for the time being. Now that will change things, so let me get this refitted before I spend any more time tuning. There's not enough coils on that thing. It would be different if I could be bothered to put the, whatchamacallit on, the locking tuners on, which I haven't yet because that wasn't really my #1 priority, but let's ditch this. I know it's a 9 for a 10, but let's just get rid of it for a second and we'll use another one. Something else. Where do you live? Number 9s? Number 9. Where's my spares? Where's my spares? That's 10. Oh, they're over here. Hidden behind the mahogany foot guard. Right, so I'm just gonna use a 9. It's close. And it's a bit bang knackered as well, but hey. So we'll go backwards and just double check this is in tune in a second. Lock it in. Notice it was the tuning peg end that gave up the ghost, not the clamping end down here. So I'm kind of, you know, I've told you one thing and done another. In other words, you can do it this way, and I think I'm going the simple way, but if you want it to be precise, I do recommend you go the Galeazzo way, and it's quite elegant the way he does it. And if you were just changing your strings as opposed to setting it up as I'm doing right now for a fret leveling, then I think I'll probably do it the Galeazzo way the second time round, so you can see the logic of how there's no hit and miss. His method just allows you to choose to calculate. That's a better word. Calculate how much backward, where the tremolo heel has to be to give you the fixed range of backward movement or backward bend that you want. So that's what's good about his system. But as you can see, you can achieve your you achieve it this way. Now this is going to have loads of slack in it, this one still. The others have been used on a guitar quite a bit, so now you see I'm doing a relative tuning there. It's probably not the greatest of ideas, so while I'm at it, let's just take a reference again if I can. Get that string out of the way. Okay, so while we're at it, let us do the right thing and let us put on the locking nuts at this end, just as if we're doing the real McCoy. It goes long ways, funnily enough, and it goes with this one and this one. Let's put it over the deck so that if I need to, if it drops off, they'll still be easy to find. So lock these on. So this is the principle. Now what you'll see is we've got it stabilized again with a certain amount of backward range on the tremolo, but it's an unknown amount, if you like, but it's kind of, all we can say about it is that it's a bit closer than it was originally, so we're kind of happier with it. Now that's okay, but let's have a feel of this. Now the beauty of the tremolo system is when you've locked this off, you don't anymore have any worries about this tuning affecting anything. The only thing that gets affected is the tremolo downwards or backwards, and if you need to do fine tuning because maybe this tiny bit of slack still working its way out, you've got these tuners here which I set to go down only on this at the moment. So if this is actually, if putting these locking tuners on has made these notes higher, which it has, I've got the tiniest bit of movement available, which is why they should really be set 2/3 of the way up. That's pretty good actually. Other way. Okay, so here we have our cheap, nasty Chinese tremolo set up. Now currently what you can see straight away is its action, which for me I think is a bit high when all said and done. Now let's test the backward motion. Now what's happening is it's high, but the amount of reduction here and pulling it back is going to leave us hitting the deck, but still that's too much. So what I suggest is we do the same thing again. We're going to take this out, we're going to undo these things. Hopefully they haven't crimped the strings in any particularly bad way. We're going to need to do another sort of gross tuning, as it were, but I'm going to first of all detune a little bit, and then before I go any further I'm going to wind these fellas in a bit more again. So this pulls back further on the tremolo. Again, this is trial and error method that I'm using, but I hope you see that it's not threatening. Now this has pulled it, now currently with no string loading, this has pulled it into the cavity nearly flat on the deck. And what I'm hoping now is as we go back into, oh look at that, it's not really what we want, because this is now, and this is now too tight. So what it's showing us is that the screws now, those last few turns are too much for this. We're not even above the deck. So I'm going to take it 3 screws back on each side, and then we're going to see what we got there. So this is the trial and error method. Really, at this stage we could do with having that guitar on there instead of hanging up. It's a bit of a pain. Now what interestingly there, what we've got is we now have a very, very low action, somewhere probably closer to where we need it to be. Now this is an interesting bit. This is the bit that people get very vexated about, aerated, vexated. Now they say you cannot make an adjustment, you must not make an adjustment. I've lost me thingy. You should not, must not, will not make an adjustment. I've lost the plot. I'm missing one of these. Did I take it inside or something? They say you cannot, should not, must not make a downward adjustment on this thingy here. Okay, that's a bit loose actually. Whatever size that is, too loose. They say you should not make a downward adjustment on there with the strings on, and that whole argument about why and why not. Now I can guarantee you it isn't going to damage it. Now the problem with this is that the action, if that, let's assume that that was about the right sort of range we want. There we go, there's our range. We're kind of where we want to be. However, I can see straight away that's too low an action to do anything with down here, and certainly as soon as we try and do a tremolo bend on it, even if it just about plays, we try and do a bend and it isn't going to go anywhere because it's just too low. So with this one I'm going to commit the unspeakable crime of taking this thing and counterclockwise it to raise these up slightly, and I'm doing it on both sides. Now this is, as I say, this is sacrilege, but hey folks, we're dealing with terrible Chinese steel, which is obviously going to just turn into dust as soon as I do that. Now again, what we've got is an action that when we pull it back, because of the tremolo movement, it changes the action, playing action. There's no way around that, by the way. That's one of the downsides of a floating tremolo. You will always get the raising and lowering of action, and if you want your half a tone there, but let's do it on the G while we can. Okay, that's still too much. If you want your half a tone, you have to go up with the action, because you can't get it out without this crashing and hitting the floor. So I'm going to wind this up a little bit more, and I'm going to just balance it both sides. Sorry, wires. I'm doing it kind of visually to begin with, but again, this is the only point of action adjustment you've got, and I know the purists are freaking out. Now we're going to theoretically stop at about the 1mm, and that isn't even there yet. And if we don't, if we try and go lower than 1mm, with the nature of the floating trem is that we aren't going to be able to use it to do a backward thing, because it's going to ground out. It's just the limits. If you want tremolo use, you are going to run out of options on how. Yeah, you can just hit the deck at some point, but again, we should be looking for a couple of things now, because we're getting more into the action play. So let's go back to the tuning for a second. Let's get the don't worry about the rattling. Now while I'm there, let's just check the relief in the neck at this point in time, because it doesn't matter really what the tremolo is doing, the relief will still show up for what it is. There is some in there, and it's about 0.2, and I'm going to leave it. Now at 0.2 we still have got no say over the nut height in the first fret action, but we still need to get this action here to a level that's playable, and as you can tell, it's still got to go up somewhat. Now these posts can come out all the way out and stand miles tall. Actually that one, sorry, that one on that side's about right. And this will change the tuning again somewhat. That's because I'm raising the posts up. Okay, so again you see how this is very much trial and error at this point, but there's a limited number of variables at play here and adjustables. You know, the action is only here and here, one side or the other or both. Now we're hitting the back plate. We're still getting two tones out of the G, and basically twice as much out of the G and twice as much out of the E. Now, but the point is, you could do it a couple of ways. You can say, look, I'm going to live with it. With the, it's your choice basically. You can say, I want to begin with my tremolo plate balanced, pretty much flat with the body, and then I want to use whatever's there. I don't want to hit the deck, but I just want to use what's there. So you never hit the deck unless you go right to the back, but who's going to, right? Now while I'm here, let's dial these in a little bit so I can, before I lock down the locking nuts, I've got myself a bit of play, or a bit of adjustment room in both directions. So I'm not going to go for the half tone, or let's put it this way, I'm not going to use the decking out on the bottom, or bottoming out here on the back of this as my reference point. I'm going to go, I want my center of movement to just stabilize parallel so it looks tidier. Okay, and you can see it's pretty much on the spot on there. On a, let's say on a strap with a 6 screw, you can't go any further back, so you're kind of limited by your backward stop point is always the body of the guitar. With this one, it has the room to go all the way back, and we can just use a bit of it. We don't need to use the whole distance back. And the reason I'm saying that is, let's why not start with it in a sort of nice looking horizontal position. So let's just retune it. Do it one more time. Right. When you've reached stable tuning and your tremolo, with your tremolo in the horizontal position, and you can see it was by trial and error, you couldn't know where it was. For example, if we think, let's say, how do you continue to adjust it? Let's say we think that's still tilting a 1 degree backwards too far, then all we do right now is we make a tiny adjustment by slackening the screws off on here. That will mess up the tuning, then we retune it using that method, and we see where our plate goes to. Does it go from there back up to the horizontal? I'm happy with it there. So it isn't difficult, providing you just don't get too freaked out by the so-called complexity of it. It will always, for any particular setting of the springs, the tremolo, the Floyd Rose will always end up stabilizing with the correct tuning. Now what you've got then is once you put your locking nuts on, okay, there might be some need for fine tuning based on slack still. I didn't really pull these strings to death. I will with the new ones, but not bad. And if you really want to get your tuner out, which I don't right now, but let's say you did, and let's say we now can do it relatively, You can now do it with the micro tuners. That one's already out, damn it. There you go. So your horrible, nasty, cheap Chinese tremolo, which I have deliberately, and forgive me Simon, I've used yours as the guinea pig, but I've deliberately adjusted it with it under tension to demonstrate that it's not going to do any harm. And when I take these strings off after having done any necessary fret leveling, which I don't even know if it needs it yet, then what will happen is I'll take it off and we'll check the blades again and see just how much damage it's done, which I can guarantee you won't be any. Now remember what I said, let's just get really practical about this. And I know a lot of us are wedded to liking precision made items, and I'm like anyone else. I love quality steel, I love brass, I love fine machining and so on and so on. And I can tell the difference, yes, when I get hold of the hardware that goes on a genuine Gibson and that goes on a vintage, Chinese made vintage V100. They are different. However, there's a kind of belief system about the uselessness of these things. Now, over a long term, I might be prepared to believe that. However, this is probably 10 to 15 years old already, and I can tell you there is no issue moving this at all. There is no creaking, grinding, clicking, snagging. It's perfect, okay? It's cheap Chinese junk and it's perfect. And guess what? It's perfectly in tune. There's nothing wrong with this, guys. Please don't get fooled, all right? I'm passionate about this, and my missus goes, why do you need to, why do you spend so much time trying to make the point about this? Because I'm tired of seeing this sort of dogma that, makes out it's junk and puts everybody off. And if you've got 14, 15 quid to spend and you're building your first guitar, right, and you've got 14, 15 quid, okay, buy the exact same thing in black, well, pretty much the same, almost identical, made in similar kind of factory from AliExpress. That's the same beastie, okay? 15 quid maximum, including postage. This thing is exactly the same as this, made in the same kind of factory, Chinese made, and it's working absolutely perfectly. Yes, it's an alloy block, and yes, they crumble sometimes when you try and put the springs in, or if the spring loading's too great over time. It's not the ideal thing. Yes, you're much better off with brass or steel, okay? But if you're making your first guitar, or you've bought a budget guitar for £85 all in, including postage, don't buy into this thing that you're going to have a terrible time. Now, the only thing I might not like about this particular thing is the shape of the tremolo arm. I might prefer one, but you know what? For £3 or £5 or whatever it is replacement, or for 16 quid, I might just put this in the thing and bend it, as far as I'm concerned, for no money. Now, before we had a terrible action, and right now this is a nice playing action. I'm just going to make a tiny adjustment downwards. I'm going to make sure this is about 1.23, and this is 1.2 and 1.4. That's kind of where I'd want it to be. Now the question on this, and this will be a real test, folks, for all of you knockers, pardon me, all of you doubting Thomases, who, I understand it, who immediately began by saying, oh wow, this is going to be a piece of junk, this Rally, okay? Let's see if all of these notes play at my chosen action. I'm not saying they will. Malcolm, it's a Rally. Look at that. That, folks, is quality. Alright? So, first impressions, don't be fooled. This is a Rally. This has never had its frets leveled, and it's playable at 1.5 and 1.2, or 1.4, 1.2, playable without any fret work. Okay? And 85 quid including postage. Now, this doesn't need fret leveling. There you go, that's 30 quid you've just saved, Simon. Bet you're pleased about that. That's because you took the chance and got a Rally on a good recommendation. So what do we have? Well, we have the Rally with the tremolo. Yeah, you know what? Do you know what, for fun, I'm going to do that little bit I said to you. I'm going to take this out a quarter of a turn on either side, and I'm going to see this balance out flat on the deck exactly, because I'm a perfectionist. Ooh, slack a bit more, tiny bit more, and then guess what? Just use this, it'll have detune. Oh, wrong button. That's what I need to do. Oh, forgot that bit, didn't I? Yeah, well, it's going to detune, and then we'll tune it up again and see if we can get it to exactly flat. And then all I have to do is take these strings off, put new ones on, and we are ready to go. So with the Floyd Rose, if you want it to be start flat on the deck, then if you want it flat on the deck, then it's actually quite easy to do. By virtue of a little bit of trial and error. Now, I needed to make sure this was in a bit more, and this will change the tuning again. Remember, there's a little tip. Start these off some way in, not completely, maybe about a third of their travel, because you may need to go both directions, so that will change the tuning again. Let's do it again. Pretty spot on. So, just as to reiterate where we've got to, I'm going to restring it in a minute. We've got, let's see if we've got it to the horizontal first of all. Yeah, pretty much. Tiny. If anything, it's a tiny bit kicked up, but that will change the action very slightly. So that's the other thing just to keep an eye on. Action's changed a bit. That will happen, but it depends on your thing. So if I say, look, that's a little bit too high now, I'm just going to go back in that quarter turn, and then I'm going to retweak that. Again, we can slack these off. So it's a matter of trial and error to get it in that flat position. It won't always be there the first time, but once you get it, you can then basically dump the strings or put your real strings on. Same thing going backwards. Till you get there, it'll stabilise. It's so much easier to have the thing on the desk. Okay, let's say we're happy there. We happy with the position? Yes, spot on. Okay, at this point I do it up, and I'll do a little bit of last minute testing. Do it up, tighten it up at the locking nuts. We'll double check the action, and if it needs adjusting, I'll adjust it down with those 2 posts again until we get it where we want. And I'll commit this sacrilegious act, if necessary, of taking it down. Now we're on 1.6ish, so we're a little bit high now. And I will now wind these in just slightly until we're at 1.7 still. One on the ball, just over 1.5. Now what I didn't test, by the way, let's just make sure we've got the tuning. I'll do it by the micro tuners for this moment. In fact, I can do that now this way. When you're tuning, by the way, remember that your hands are moving this. So tune and take your hands off. How nice does that sound? Perfectly in tune, lovely. Achieved with the help of the micro tuners for the last tiny bit of the way. Now I've got the action I want, we're in tune. I'm so chuffed. There you go, cheap Chinese crap. Now what you need to do next is check what we got there. Is that a little tiny blemish on there? It is. Somebody's put a little tiny scratch, but you know what? I don't think I'd do a fret leveling for that. Rally, you're a beaut. Ladies and gentlemen, £85 worth of Rally. Okay, replacement tuner, you can see it on there, hardly even noticed it, forgotten about it. Temporary replacement arm. Tremolo working absolutely perfectly. We are a go-go, and we're really just ready for the act of basically refitting the pick guard, wiring that fellow up, which I'll turn on the soldering iron for the pleasure of doing it, and in fact putting some new 10s on it. Bob is your jolly uncle. So we go backwards in the process by undoing these here. What's it? These thingies, and I'm going to put on new strings next time. And I'm not going to do the Frugua method. I think it's kind of just making me realise it's probably slightly inappropriate, if anything, for this the Floyd Rose. I hadn't thought it through that way, but it's it's better to make the target the horizontal seating of the of the base plate in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that thing of just holding this up for a minute and putting my fingers under there. Sorry, drop that. Just putting this under there to hold it out of the way, and then we're going to take off the strings. Now I can't really use these again unless it's for a Floyd setup, so these can probably come off and go in the bin, because the next lot is just going to be brand new strings on. Now the thing about this is not doing a fret level polishing frets and fret levels, sorry, doing the fret level then leads to reshaping and polishing out the frets, and in this case there isn't enough wear to, I would say, to justify that for the amount, you know, for the expense. So I'm going to make a judgment call on this, kind of on Simon's behalf, and save him 30 quid. But that means the frets are going to be kind of, they're not going to be the ultimate shiniest thing in the world. However, they're going to be entirely playable, and they will shine up with play. I'd rather do that than charge more time for doing polishing and stuff additionally. Normally that's taken care of in the fret leveling, which just about everything is, but thankfully we've got a Rally here, and as we've seen, it's so darn good that it's taken care of that itself. Okay, so I'm just getting rid of these old strings. I probably need 2 bits of, God, it's tough, really should do 2 bits of wood to hold it up. Out you come. Okay, that's all there. Chop that up a bit later into pieces. Turn this off for a minute, it's getting warm in here. Okay, so truss one. That thing warming up. Sand soldering iron is warming up. Yeah, I mean there's a couple of little notches here, but I think it plays so well as is. I'm not going to add extra money just to clean them. This is a budget guitar, so let's do it. Let's do it in the spirit of, yes, it's good enough to play, but it came in. And all praise to Rallys, I say, because they are superb. So Malcolm, you'll be pleased to hear that. I don't think you had any doubt, really. Right, let's just get, basically just freeing up a bit of wire on the end here to do the socket, jack socket. So a little bit of extra runoff. Yeah, it's a really pleasant surprise. What a good condition guitar for this so-called budget Chinese. I mean, that's what those who've had Rallys like Malcolm and myself and others, now too numerous to mention. You know, it's something that we've come to notice or come to know about Rallys, is that they're pretty good all-round guitars, and there's no exception. You know, it's not a high-end piece of manufacturing, but it's pretty good, and it does the thing exactly. Not only does it, I think you've got to remember, it doesn't not just do what it's supposed to do. This does it better than 98% of guitars that come through this, including your more expensive Epiphones, Gibsons, you name it. This is a out-of-the-box, off-the-factory floor Rally that, like its GL300 counterparts, doesn't need fret leveling and can play straight out the box. Of course, like any guitar, and completely not the remit of Rally themselves, it needs setting up, as you can see, and there's no way around that. And if it's not set up, it comes, as you saw, in a dreadful state. You can't get around that. It's unplayable, but it's not. That's not Rally's fault. That's the fault of a lack of setup. So I was just going to pull off some solder for a minute first. So yeah, it's apart from that dreadful setup, everything underlying it is considerably, quite a chunk better than many much more expensive guitars. You know, and that really is that's the thing I've often tried to get across with Rallys. You know, when I first had one, the Rally GL300 was the first one I got. just took a punt on it basically. Hadn't heard of them before, but I did find some feedback online, and when you've been buying things and looking at feedback for as long as I had, you start to be able to read, I don't say between the lines exactly, but you can really tell when something's out of the ordinary. There's a certain way that the feedback about it reads, and it's very genuine, and it's very you can't pass it up. And in fact, it's one of these things where you can see that owners have gone to some considerable lengths to be able to leave a report or a feedback report, because they're so astonishingly impressed by it, and so they go and find a place against all the odds, because maybe there isn't a forum or anything naturally set up to feedback, but people like me that, you know, who are so impressed, then go and, after they bought one, go and sort of go undertake quite a labour of love to be able to leave feedback, because they're so surprised and pleased with the purchase. And so that's what I was able to discern in the original feedback that I found online, and having read it, then it was just compelling. I had to try this out. So I bought this guitar, a guitar Rally, for 150 quid. It was a cherry sunburst one, and it was fabulous. Playable straight off from the outset, and beautiful to play. The action was incredibly low, and I just loved it straight away. And yeah, eventually sold it because I couldn't justify having it whilst playing different guitars, but it was a beautiful guitar, and it spurred me to get several more, which I bought. Did minimal setup required in some ways on most of them, and then sold on to various people who became friends and Rally fans at the same time, and they really are superb. And this, I have to say, this is come in on par. It doesn't have the, you know, obviously because it's not a weighty guitar and it doesn't have the hardwood, quite the same hard, solid, dense timber feel. It doesn't have quite the same natural, I don't know what the word would be, reassuringness of the Les Paul. But having said that, it's still amazingly solid and well set up. That's the thing that really gets me about this. Now I'm just doing a bit of a messing around here with this socket because it's wobbly, so I'm going to do my thing here of putting a bit of thread lock on it to stop it coming undone at a later time. And don't mind if it shows up, I'll clean most of it off, but it's much better that this doesn't go anywhere over time. Very difficult to get these things totally done up rock solid. There's about no reasonable access in here to tighten up. You eventually end up rounding something off. And skinning your fingers usually in the bargain. Okay. I don't mind if it's a bit of blue residue sticking through there. It's just a kind of confirmation that it's been extra fixed in place. Right. So here we go. First of all, through the body, we can go in sideways with this one into the cavity, and then this one through the hole here, down into the body, into the cavity there, out to the other side, back through please. Doesn't really matter where it goes, there's two holes, but it won't stay through, that's the annoying bit. Pull through, pull through, pull through, line it all up, make sure all wires are in the right recesses and so on and so forth. There we are, look at that, ready to go. So a little bit of, let's put some screws in first so we can hold into place. There might be a little bit of fixing required, or a bit of filling required on the holes that where the strap buttons go, because they look a bit weak. I'll check, see if I've got spare slightly larger screws that will do the job rather than filling the hole. Don't forget, I'm also going to do an extra hand tighten on the neck screws, neck bolts screws. Okay, I'm going to whiz round and get all these in. This is on 1 on my lowest torque setting, so just enough to get in and kick the ratchet off. Okay. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's one of these things. It's got a tiny little scratch on the fret up there, but I don't think it's worth, given it so it plays so well to begin with. You know, do you take off, you know, a year of life on the frets or 6 months of life for the sake of shining these up a bit more, removing these tiny amounts of fret wear down there and that one little scratch there? No. But what you don't do, my advice is, whatever you do, is you don't start working on that on its own just to smooth it out, because you'll create a low spot and then the rest will go wonky from there. So, you know, compromise, live with it, because what you've got instead is a blinding playing action that you won't regret. Okay, so flipping it over for a minute, we'll hook up this trim claw arrangement, solder that down, and pull off this original bit of plastic. It's always quite hard to get the whole of the blob softened up on the trim claw, because it absorbs the heat quite well, or sheds the heat. It's like a heat sink. So it can be a bit of a faff sometimes to get the thing reconnected. Well, I'm very pleased with this, Simon. As you can probably tell, it's lived up to not only what I expected for rallies, which is great. I'm very pleased with that personally, but it's also kind of borne out my kind of long-held opinion on the whole issue of tremolos, Chinese built tremolos, you know, and the sort of dogma that says they're junk and they don't work. It's not possible they work, and it's just not the case. So I'm very pleased with that. You know, and it's not to, you know, don't get me wrong, it's not to knock good quality, well built, machined pieces of equipment. I love them as much as the next person, but I'm much more interested in showing somebody who hasn't got the money to spend 400 euros on a beautiful machined piece, something that either cost 14 quid, pounds, or came with a guitar that only cost £80 in total. You know, I want you to understand that that will play very well indeed, and you can expect it to play very well indeed as well. Oh, now I've just lost a couple of parts of the bridge have just dropped out, which is just as well. I've spotted them. That's one thing that they can do, these little boots. They're easy enough to put back in. Okay, so I'll do the neck now before I put the neck under load. Where's the screwdriver? And all I'm going to do with this one here is to put a bit of extra hand turn pressure on it, but not massive amounts. And it's a very subjective thing. Just some, okay? That's all. Now these little fellas here, you can, if they do drop out, these sort of things, you can pretty much tell where they go back in, because there's a little recess in there, which the screw kind of goes into when it's all in place. So just line that up at the bottom, facing backwards, and put them back in. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, which one comes out where, because the screw will push into there to lock it in place. Okay, so while we're at it, like I say, I'm not even going to spend charge another hour polishing these up, because you know, this is going to play fine anyway. They're not rough or anything. It'll just be purely cosmetic, and it's just more money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this on, and then we're going to put the strings on, and then we'll take care of the final bits of plastic like this. Actually, give those could do with a little clean. They're a bit grubby. Let's just get this done. Oh, well, you can see that. It's just the attaching the, what do you call it, that thing. Now, which way am I going? That way, right. So it's amazing when you do this for the first time. Make sure you get this right, because it's so easy, first of all, to get it wrong, as I've done more times than I care to remember. You look at it and you go, that's the earth, here's my earth, and you put the two together and away you go. And actually, if you lose concentration for a second, you can get it wrong. And then the real pain is because you put it away inside this little chamber, you forget about it and you kind of assume you've done it. And if you haven't done it, what will happen is all manner of weird things will happen. Some of them not even logical, but your guitar won't work properly. But because it's illogical, sometimes it can then be the very last thing you check. It sort of tends to be, and because it's because it's the bad effects aren't logical, and B, because it's hidden out of the way, and so you can spend time rewiring things up, down, back to front, and then suddenly you'll go, oh, what about the, and then you'll, lo and behold, you'll take off the cover, pull this little unit out, and you'll go, it's back to front. I cannot believe it. What was wrong with me? Why? And you know, it's so possible to do for someone like me anyway. But there we are. Okay. Alrighty. Cut off any excesses. Wrong way around. Sunshine. Bend it backwards. Put it in there. 2. Now these have to be longer ones. It's the only 2 left. So I'm hoping that if the tremolo arm, gold tremolo arm arrives, then Simon can come and get this at the weekend if he feels like it. Okay, so here's the good fun stuff. The new strings. We get some 10s. They're going to. Now this is going to require, slightly differently from last time, we're going to require stretching here. And the rule of thumb being quite simply, the more you stretch to get this right, the less adjusting you're going to have to do, and the less slacking off the locking thing at the end and redoing things. So it kind of pays to get as much of the slack out as possible, or else you will be finding it goes out of tune, so it's to the point where you run out of adjustment on your fine tuners and you then have to slack everything off and redo it. So it's just a kind of a warning to be wary of that. Now what I haven't also done at this point in time is the yikes, that's heavy, is the intonation. I've set it where I think it should be, and I probably would have been better to have done it on the old strings, but sometimes the strings can affect it, so maybe not, who knows. Anyway, so we still have that to do, and with this thing it's a little bit harder because, you know, we have to slacken the strings off to move it. So we basically want to cross our fingers and hope that we get it the first time. It would be wishful thinking, but it would be good to get it first time round. Now I'm just going to hold that there, put the high E on while I'm at it, since I've got access to that side, saves breaking my hands moving the thing around left, right and centre. I had my great t-shirt on that Mark gave me yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was. My what was it? I've forgotten what it was now. rabbiting on about now. Something or other. Ah, right, let's do these up tight. I forgot what it was on that t-shirt, Mark, I'm so sorry. Where is... Okay, I have temporarily misplaced there it is. Okay, so I'm just going to really do these up so there's no danger at all of the strings popping out. Once I'm confident of that, then blimey, that one's hard. I'm going to hold this up if I can with my bare hands, switch sides, get these bits in. This being the A string. Do up the low E. Even though it's slightly bent, it still works absolutely fine, that low E. And then we'll chop this end off the D and we'll be ready to load that one. Yeah, like I said, that ideally you probably wouldn't want to use brand new strings to do the intonation on this kind of guitar, because it requires a bit of slacking off and doing up and slacking off, and I try to, especially when there's a locking nut involved, which by default will cause some crimping of the strings. I'd like to try and avoid that. But. Okay, so the next bit is we get the strings onto the tuners, and kind of a similar thing applies. You know, we want to. I'll just conduct it like I normally do. Put on enough. It's not going to factor into anything, it just looks tidy. Put on enough here to hold it if and when I need to undo the locking nuts and make an adjustment. But hopefully once we've got all the slack out, we won't need to do much of that. So there we go. So the good thing about this is that Simon, although he hasn't sort of owned the guitar long or played it long, he'll no doubt remember how bad it was to begin with, i.e. how unplayable it was. So I don't think it will. I think it will be quite a revelation to see how well this plays now. But it can be, for me, it can be really good when somebody's had a guitar for a while and they know, they're very familiar with how it feels, because you know, the payoff of feeling an improvement is obviously that much greater than something that comes, let's say sometimes people order a guitar and send it directly to me from the shop, and they never have time to get to know it, and as a result they don't really perceive quite the same difference in improvement in the way it plays, which is a little bit of a loss from my perspective. It's much better to obviously to have that tangible sense of improvement. But anyway, I think this one will feel very different. Now I've just done something unforgivable. I've just realised in chatting away, I've put this on without testing the electrics. So at worst, this may cost me a set of strings ultimately. I can't see any reason why the electrics won't work as a result of having checked them, tightened the pots up and so on, and giving them some compressed air and some electrical cleaner. But should have tested them before I put the strings on. Damn it. Served me right for not thinking. Okay, so the thing about these little string trees, I thought at the beginning they weren't the good ones, and I suggested getting replacements. Of course, I wasn't thinking straight, because since they're on the back side of locking nuts, they really aren't. That isn't necessary, unless of course you get to a point in the future where you don't use the locking nut part of it, in which case I would recommend exchanging them for tusk. But right now there's no issue of the strings moving backwards and forwards through them, other than in this period of initially stringing the guitar and doing the tightening the strings up, doing the gross tuning part, if you like, before we get to the fine tuning. Okay, so this, despite everything, with a complex bridge, this has taken a little while longer than some guitars because of the amount of, obviously the amount of attention to detail to both the bridge and the electrics and stuff. So now this I should now drop back off, and this is now pitching too far forward. So the strings are obviously putting too much strain or too much pressure on the tremolos. It's overpowering the springs, but we know that it won't do. Pound for pound, the loading should be pretty much the same. So, but what I want to do at this stage in the game is I want to stretch out manually. Don't care about this for a minute. I just want to, well, what I do care about is, let's go out to the end. It's always a good thing to do. Go out to the end on all these little thumb screws to the furthest outward extent, and then go a third of the way in, or a quarter of the way in, maybe a third. Remember, you just got to, it's visual really, you just have to guess it. But you need some direction, movement in both directions possible for fine tuning. Okay, so in principle, use the same good old-fashioned string stretching techniques, including, while you're at it, you might as well get rid of whatever's behind the nut, although it won't be a critical issue shortly once we've locked it down. So we've got nice action, which we can tweak again at the last minute if we want to, and then a case of checking that it plays. And this will be the first time I've heard it, because well, we heard it play when all the strings were all over the place. So let's go for a relative tune up, and then the stretch again. Soldering iron. Okay, so for a moment, just hang that back up and just go and a bit more of a stretch on this. Yeah, sorry, I think I got probably may have been a bit confusing at the beginning talking about using Galeazzo-Fredoua's method. It's definitely worth checking out if you want to know, if you want to control the precise amount of backward pitch. That's when it really comes in handy, and you tend to want to do that when you set a floating tremolo on a strat type guitar, or a guitar with a strat type bridge, whether it's a 6-screw version or the 2-screw 2-post floating one, because they all have a sort of maximum backward movement, whereas this one has quite a lot of backward movement into the body. So you've got to remember, what we're dealing with here is two things. We're dealing with the guitar coming to its natural equilibrium between string load and spring force. That takes a little while to get anyway. And then the other thing it's doing is it's shedding its slack in the strings as well. So you kind of can keep expecting it to change. Now currently this is still tipped up a little bit, so we should expect it to go down a bit. And if it doesn't, it might mean that the strings we had on before are actually hybrid or heavier than 10s. So I assumed they were 10s, so that's not a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that thing of, first of all, undo this again, and we'll use the pause distance to bring it back and to equal out. Again, it's a bit more of a trial and error method. I thought if it had been the same set of 10s, it should have gone back to the same place, but it hasn't quite, so there's a slightly different loading on it for some reason. It could be a slightly different gauge that I was unaware of. So we're going to do this thing of pulling it back in. We want to slack it off. We're still not locked down at that end, so we can do it. Okay, so I know it's at tension, at proper tuning, it's still sitting up, so I'm going to go in 2 turns like that, and then go again with the tuning, string for string tuning. So look, yeah, we're about on, might be a tiny fraction too far in if anything, so I'm going to just go 1/8 of a turn out on both. And then go for, see, it's trial and error at this stage. Get a chance to do a little bit of stretching carefully, and then go back for the tuning. Hello, you were on video.
Fans. Goodness.
Yes, it needs to tidy up.
There's no way to put your tea down.
Just shove things away.
How's it going?
Right. Brilliantly, in fact, this Rally, guess what? It doesn't need any fret leveling at all. Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I like about it, and the tremolo is working absolutely fine. Just doing last sort of tweaks to get it in tune.
Very good.
That's what I hoped. Testament to Rally though, like we kind of knew.
Yeah. They build good guitars.
Exceptionally good guitars.
They're still going.
I'm not sure. Okay, guitar, tiny fraction more in. It's still just sitting up a tiny bit. See you in a bit. Thank you for my tea, by the way. Right, we're nearly there. Keep at it for a minute. We're still the trial and error method, but we'll get there. I'm just taking out any more bits of slack that we can out of it. Still tiny bit. Oh, this magnet's wow, fractionally kicked up, so I'm just going a little bit more pressure. I could probably even take it a bit more. Okay. Getting there, very close. Now I'm not, actually, suddenly occurred to me, just 1 second, I'm doing all this off a guitar that hasn't been tuned in ages, so let's just get a note. Beautiful. Beautifully tuned. Back out with this baby. Now let's do something here. Let's plug that in there. Let's kill some birds with some stones. So it's still a little off tune, but it's getting there. I'm almost there, and I'm going to lock it down in a minute. But when I've pretty convinced I've got all the meaningful slack out of the strings. Okay, the plate is nice and flat, so we're nearly there. Okay, that's where I'm going to lock it down. Let's get this out of the way. Oh my lordy. Crash, bang, wallop. Okay, plugged in. Our little locking what's-its. Get our little thingamajig, which I seem to have lost now. That's confusing. I really have lost the plot. It's not that, it's not that. Maybe it's fallen off the... Right, okay, it's gone somewhere. Let's get this on here, safe and sound first. Okay, so we'll put these on and then we'll do micro tuning, because obviously you find that this tends to crimp the string down a little bit, which raises the pitch very slightly, so hence the building in a bit of downward tuning ability. Once you've got these locking nuts on is always a good idea, because it sometimes does just raise, especially on the bigger strings, crimps them upwards a tiny bit. And then we can go for a note. Pretty good. So some of these, I'm going to do another little slack off here one more time. Oh, actually no, let's do something else while we're at it. Let's check the intonation. I'm annoyed that I've, not surprising, but I've misplaced my Allen and my hex key thing. Let's just do it. I'm just going to do a quick check on the intonation. You're not going to see it. I'm just going to do it from up here. And see what it comes up with. Pretty good. Okay, there's a tiny bit, I would say that's on, that's a tiny bit long, and that's a tiny bit long, so I've got two strings here that I want to move, and I'll do it right now. Slack off, and only those two, yeah. So this is going to mess up everything else for a minute, so I've got to move sideways. Oh, no, I still got my thing, can I do it? Yeah. Okay, and that pull this forward a tiny fraction. How do I move it forward? Come on. That's forward, that's shortened, and this one needs to come forward a bit, so I'll take this out and put it in the other hole. So we're back on the same pattern as all of them. Let's see what happens now. This isn't going to work now. I'm going to need to do it again by two of these. Oh, they're locked, aren't they? Yeah, but it's all going to be going over the place. Right, let's unlock these one more time. And let's go back to about halfway position on all of these, so we've got room for manoeuvre. Alright, going near a half this time. And then we'll go for a tuning off of this. Now I'm using the tuner as well. Sorry, it's a bit slow. I'm using the tuner visually now. E, A, D, G, B, okay, finally, let's lock this down. Lock and load. Right, I should be nicely intonated now. Only had to move the low E and the A. Let's just place this down. Have a listen. I've got the tuner going again. I'm going to do fine tuning. Beautiful. And then we can put in our thingamajig. Okay, now I'm going to do a couple of little things. I'm going to unplug it for a minute. Bring this up here, it's out of the way. So all going great guns. So I'm going to, what was I going to do? Oh yes, adjust the pickups. All right, so we're going to go for about 2 millimeters under, which means we can go up with this one, up with this one, up with this one. Middle one is okay, and then up with this one. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right. So there we have it. Right. Next thing to do for me, I'm happy with that's lined up, perfectly positioned. This can go back on. I'm going to just off camera, I'll clean the string, no, the knobs, give them a quick clean, put them back on, and I'll just do a bit of rooting around for some slightly bigger strap screws so that I can refit the strap buttons with a bit more grip. But apart from that, it's pretty much done. And it's a really nice outcome on this, I think, for such a budget find. I'm glad that Simon took the punt with it, because you know it's on the say so that rallies yeah, it's on the say so that rallies are great playable guitars. So a quick look at this. We got 1.2, we got just on 1. That's really nice and low. Okay, so I'll come back when it's ready to give it a little playthrough, yeah, and have a sort of a sense of what it's like. So you little fella can go out of the way. You can go on there. Beautiful, beautiful, said Bernard Matthews. See you in a minute. Okay, right, where are we? Right, so the guitar done, intonated. Still probably a little bit of tuning to do, maybe one more release and reclamp. So let's get a plastic, yeah, you know, regular plectrum. Let's take off the effects. So what have we got? We have got a humbucker, single coil and humbucker, and that probably needs to come up because it's a single coil all on its own, and on its own it's a bit of a drop in volume. So let us come up closer to the business end of things, see what we get. Oh, by the way, this is something you'll get with any floating tremolo. You bend a note and the rest bends with it. Okay, so we've got bridge. This is a fairly clean sound, no effects or anything. We're on jazz chorus. We've got bridge and middle. Middle. Middle and neck. Bit of crackle there on the end of the tone pot, but it will go away with use. That's the thing, it's never used enough, so they get build up of dust in there, or coating on the slidey, the contact thing in there. But you see, use it and it goes away. And then neck humbucker. What do we do? Let's put some reverb on it. Okay, that's cleans. Brit combo. Yeah, that's got quite a lot of gain on it, so. give it some rectifier with tons of drive gain. Double two-tone bend in what's that, brick in the wall? That's that two-tone thing, that's amazing. Hurts on tens. The bends. Got to learn the middle bit of that. Never have done. Something like that. Hey, so look, I think you can take my word for it, can't you? That this is all right. good fun actually. So looking at where I've got down to on these little fella miladses, what I am going to do is I'm going to do one more slack off and tighten up, and that's only, probably need my tunery thing again for that, that's only so that I can just, having played it a bit and got squeezed out some of the slack, the remaining slack, then I can redo it with the tuner's a little bit higher up the thing, so that there's more room for adjustment on there. So let me just get back to my noisy thing. Oh, not that. Let's go back to jazz chorus. Right, worry about that for a second. Let's do this bit. So anyway, yeah. Last little tweakings. So before I do anything and tune it, I'm going to slack these off. Wow. Then I'm going to dial those right out again and just back in 3 turns or something like that. Let's get them all out. I want as much adjustment left in them by the time I come to make any tweaks. That should be about right. Okay. So I'll go for my tuning like last time. That's the sound, by the way, of the it's the sound of the suburbs. No, it's this. Let's take this off a minute because that isn't helping. It's the sound of the strings going through the string trees, which is why I hate them so much. That's a good question. Actually, this is a difference when you put the. It's making a difference putting the tremolo in. Do this up. It may change again when we put the old tremolo arm on, because obviously that adds some drag to the block, which it always will do if it's hanging down, or in any position. It's going to affect the weight of it, but we shall see. So first of all, that's interesting. Why is that not touching anything? What is that? Okay, I've done something right. Foolish me. I've gone from all the way out, and of course all the way out, right, all the way out isn't touching the actual tuners. That's my mistake. I need to start from where they touch the tuners and nowhere else. One more time. Right, where do they touch the tuners? That one's already touching as it happens. Is this one already touching? That one's already touching as it happens. So out a bit, out a bit. That one's working, that one's working, that one's working. But if you go much further out than that, you lose any. Oh, that's interesting. That really is interesting. So there. Hate those string trees. Tighten this up once and for all. The final countdown. Oh, I was going to say something. I don't know if any of you folks out there are Star Trek fans, and if you are, I'd forgotten I was. I've never really cared for anything but the original 60s series, and I discovered the other day something called Star Wars Continues. And it's a sort of fan-made, professionally produced series. Brilliant. If you're a fan of the original, get it. Watch it on YouTube. So it'll always be slightly off if you put the arm on, unless it sticks out horizontally. Fantastic, I love it. There we go. Yeah, try it out. Star Trek Continues. And if you like the original feel of the original and the colours and everything, it's faithfully reproduced, and it's the aim of it is to pick up where the original series left off on its 5-year mission to the stars and all that, because apparently the original series only did 3 years in their mission to the stars. So this series continues and finishes off. There's 11 episodes and they're beautifully shot, and actually after about 1 or 2 I could have stayed in that Star Trek universe forever, and I just wish they'd make some more, because it's just like back in the old days, the Star Trek that I used to love. Anyway, there you go. Rally, don't even know the model number, it's got some number somewhere, I've never been able to find it. Rally Super Strat style thing, £85 delivered, beautiful working tremolo. Yay! For a cheap piece of junk, it's absolutely fine, works great, does its job, returns to tune every time. So there you go, there's proof that it doesn't have to be crap just because it's made in China. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry if it was a bit challenging. Like I said, don't get me wrong, I love nicely made, nicely machined equipment that pays somebody a decent wage to make it. However, the point is, if you don't have that kind of money and you've got something like that, it can play beautifully. Don't write it off just because it's made in China. See you again.